Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to talk about my Pulk sled and how you can design your own. I'm going to go over the features that I have on this one, how I built it up. There'll be chapter titles below, so if you want to hop around and see different aspects. The first half is going to be kind of covering my system and this tie-out system and why I think it's the best system you can use for winter, especially cold temperatures. Second half, we're going to do a full breakdown. I'm going to show you how I built this, the components. I'll lay everything out so you can do it yourself if you want to and kind of do a step-by-step build out. So let's get going. All right, why a Pulk and what do you use it for? So call it a sled, call it a Pulk, ahkio in some areas. The biggest thing is ease of travel in the winter, whether you're gonna do winter camping or just day trips, snowshoeing or on cross-country skis. This allows you to bring so much more comfort and distributes the weight off of your back and lets the snow do the work by gliding across it. I've done trips where I've had a heavy pack and snowshoes and you're just sinking and you're just completely wore out. You're limited to what your pack can carry. A sled allows you to bring just all those extra items of comfort, especially for very cold temperatures. When I go out, I want that comfort with me. I want that extra warmth, that thicker pad, maybe an extra wool blanket or extra boots. The sled allows me to carry all that with very little resistance depending on the snow type and how the snowpack is. So this sled is a Paris Expedition sled. I'm gonna flip it over here. That's the name. It's fairly inexpensive. I think it was around $70. I'll put a link below so you can check that out if you want. I'll go over pretty much everything I have. I'll try to put links below. There's a couple different types that people like to use. Jet sled is another version. It's more of a boxy square version. And the reason I prefer this is I want that narrow capacity. I want it to be narrow, just basically following my shoulders. So as I'm working in and out among trees, I don't want something wide that I have to pay attention to snags and hooking up. This also allows me to really distribute my weight evenly across. I don't have it all in one big box. So that's my preference on this design. So if you don't have a sled, you want to get into winter camping or even just day trips and have it with you, or for training, weight training, this is a way to go. Even for hunting, if you're going to be out in winter conditions and you need to pack something big out, like you're going for an elk, this will do wonders. You can load these things up pretty heavy. I think the heaviest I've done is about 40 pounds to 60 pounds because I don't need more than that. So like I mentioned, this is a Paris Expedition sled. You can buy the full setups where they have the tie-outs, everything, the pole's already set with it, but it seems like on average you're looking at around $400 to $600 for companies that make a complete package, and that's why there's so many videos on the do-it-yourself and how to set up your own system. So you've looked, probably this isn't the only video you've checked out. I did the same thing before building mine. I looked at different tie-down systems, what I wanted, and I felt like none of them achieved the purposes. There was too many problems. I've worked in a lot of cold weather and seen equipment failure, and that's my biggest concern. I don't want equipment to fail. I've seen people use straps and ratcheting systems and some good designs, but the biggest problem with those is that if it gets very cold or icy, those ratchets tend to freeze up or they get too much ice in them and they just won't ratchet and tighten down. With a strap system that you can tighten by hand, the same thing. It'll start to slip, it'll start to bind. All those buckles that slide back and forth. In the cold, everything fails. So in making my own tie-out system, I wanted something that was efficient and that was gonna have no chance of failure. Well, everything has a chance of failure, but I wanted a very low chance of that happening. So I stole this system from a military sled that I have in some of my other videos. It's just a military style Pulk, but the key feature was the tie-outs that they used. So I kind of modified it to my own purposes and then built this out based on that. And I'll show you some close-ups. We'll go in and I'll show you the features, what I did. And if you stick around to the end, we'll go through the whole build up if you want to do it yourself, or excuse me, the whole build out. So the main thing is I wanted paracord first of all, and I want everything to serve two purposes. So all of this tie-down system I can use in an emergency. If I need to make a shelter, if I run out of cord, I can start stripping off this cord. And since it's paracord, I can neck it down into those finer strands. So the tie-down itself versus a strap serves two purposes. Now I have cordage to use in an emergency. I also wanted carabiners that I can undo and do quickly. So I didn't, with cold hands, buckles, etc. It's very, very difficult to work those when you got big gloves on. I wanted something easy that I can just strap on and off. And all of this I wanted to be inexpensive. All the components, other than the sled, that was really my only expense. The rest of this, I'm just utilizing cheap stuff off Amazon. So that's the purpose of this build out, is to keep it cheap and efficient and something that you can rely on. So the key here is a way that I have this cord tied out here and you can lengthen all of this. So I'll break it down. I'll try to show you some closer shots here as we go. But as far as the bivy itself, that's also a feature. This is a military bivy. It's part of the EQUEX sleep system. This is the outer shell, the bivy. So first of all, this is perfect for storing everything in. It's almost the same length of the sled. Houses everything in a waterproof shell and keeps everything nice and tidy. If you've seen some sleds or builds, stuff's poking out everywhere. I wanted everything smooth, that I can knock the snow off and I can just keep it clean and tidy and get in and out. So as I take these off, I can get inside and get whatever I have in by just unzipping. And you'll see I've got a few extra carabiners here. That's part of the system too for emergencies. But as we unhook it and lay these back, it just opens up, and then I can unzip the bivy and get to whatever goods I have in there. Another key feature of this, oh well, I guess before I move on from the bivy, also that serves, well, a few purposes. It keeps my equipment organized, it keeps it dry, and I can use this as part of my sleep system. So I can pull my goods out, set them off to the side. If I need to pitch over, if it's an emergency, really I can empty the contents and use the sled itself as part of a barrier. I've done that with my other sled. I did a video, I'll put that video up here, where I slept in the sled and used it as my sleep system, and I think I utilized the bivy in that as well. But everything should have multiple purposes, multiple ways to use it out in the field in case something fails. So the bivy, I think this is a good way to go. You can get these off of military surplus for pretty cheap. And like I said, I'll try to put links down to everything. So along with that, now that we've covered the bivy, the tie-out system, the biggest thing about this is that it's all expandable. I kept these pieces fairly measured out to about where the max height I would want. And like I said, I'll go into more detail on this here in a moment. But the rest of this paracord over here, this can all be lengthened out so that if I have it even higher or something I have to pack out even bigger, I can expand out to here. So all of this allows you to expand, shrink down, and expand as needed. Okay, I have everything undone, so I can hopefully show you how this system works a little more clearly. So each one of these, hopefully this is picking up on camera, each one of these is maxed out as far as they can go. The carabiner can slide. You can see here the anchor points. The tie-offs are here and here, and that's the max distance this can go, other than being mobile left to right. And all along the side, all of these go to there. So the piece of paracord I have on the back side here running is just a continuous strand that runs all the way to the front. As if I pull on it, I can keep stretching this out. It's just sliding back and forth. Let me bring you around, I'll show you that. So here's the piece of paracord on the other side. As you can see, I'm trying to hold this with one hand. It's just one piece that runs the entire length, and I can tighten that. I'll pull it up and over and hook it to that carabiner. And I can do so with each piece as I tighten it. Let me show you in action here. Okay, this will make sense in a second as you see it. So I'll reach across, grab the fixed point and my piece of paracord, hook it. Then I'll move on to the next. Grab that piece, and you can see as I pull on this, well, I'll show you here on this next piece. I'll hook this, grab the third, pull it up, and I start tightening this piece of paracord. So as I pull on this, I can bring this tighter and tighter by just the tension. I pull here, take up the slack, pull this, and just like a set of shoelaces, that's essentially how this is. So as I make this tighter and tighter, I hook it onto the piece of carabiner here, or sorry, this side of the carabiner, take up the tension, pull it out over here, and move to my next carabiner. Keep moving with that. All right, and now we're to the front. Get you all back in frame here. So you can see it's kind of loose. I could expand this as I add to this. I can keep growing this, or really tighten it down if it's really nasty weather and I'm going over some rough terrain. So that final piece after it comes to this carabiner is down through this eyelet, and that's my tension system. I have tie-outs here, extra tie-outs, but now as I pull that, after I get all the tension, I'll run this up and over, and I'll swap views here to show you the final. So then as I take up my final slack, get this all tightened down, I can take this last carabiner, run it through each one of these, and depending on how loose I have this or how tight, I can really anchor it down and reach There, and now I have a secure anchored system. If I don't have much in here, that's where I draw it all the way to the rear. And I use that extra bit of paracord here to latch that onto. And that way I have a completely secure system. So I really think it is the best system. It's pretty foolproof. It allows me to expand it, allows me to really tighten things down. If components are cheap, I mean, it's paracord, and these are cheap, danky carabiners that I got off Amazon. So I don't need it really hardcore and tough as far as those components. I can just keep extra with me. I have extra ones I keep here on extra tie-outs if I need to do additional anchoring or if something does fail with that carabiner. And I've used this a few times out in the field now, down to 0 degrees, and it has been amazing. I mean, it's an awesome system. I really like it. It works for me. Like I said, second half of the video or down in the chapter titles you can jump to, and we'll go over the full build. But as far as the pull system, let me hop over and I'll show you that. So for the pull system, I tried building my own. It didn't work out so well, and I just decided to buy some. The pulls are incredibly important. Don't pinch pennies on the pulls. That's all I can say. I've tried making some, and it didn't turn out well. So this is the set of pulls I got. I got these from skipulk.com. They're a set of fiberglass, and these are pretty stinking tough. I got them at a discount. They had kind of a second-hand sale, and I got them fairly cheap. So the sled and the pulls themselves are, I mean, this was about 70 bucks, like I mentioned, and I think I spent $100 on these. So you can see the eyelets right there. That just really makes things key for movement. So comes through. It's kind of hard to do in this room. Actually get them in there. All right, so these guys just line up down here. Put your slide through, and then you anchor it on this other side like that. It's kind of tough to do here in the room without punching a hole in the wall. But each of these locks in. It's a nice secure system, and then allows this to fold forward and fold back. The other end, I'll show you the other end here, that just ties onto your pack. Plus, it's easy to take off in the winter when you want to put things away. You just pop that off, slide it out, and you're good to go. So here's the other end, just nice big eyelets that then you can take a carabiner, hook onto your waist belt or your pack, and that really secures the system. Plus, with these fiberglass pulls, I've actually used them as part of my shelter system. I tucked them down in the end, tied off on the ends, and used it as my main pulls. So another double feature. And like I said, guys, all of this I picked up mostly off Amazon or hardware store, other than the pulls and the sled. But you can see it's pretty straightforward. I just measured out these unilaterally across to where I wanted the tie system, drilled holes, got these eyelets, anchored it down with some lock nuts, and that's basically how easy it is. Like I said, we'll go into the second phase now where I strip this all down, and I'll show you from the ground up what I did, what I used, the tools, and have links to all of this stuff. So if you want to stay with me, we'll jump into that now. If not, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Check out the videos that I've got posted showing the sled. I'll tie those in at the end, some of the campouts that I did with it. So for those of you that are going to stay with me, stand by and we'll have this thing stripped. All right, thanks for sticking around. We're ready to do the full build. I've got everything that you need laid out here, and we'll go over it. So first of all, you need 6 carabiners. I have one that's offset in color. That's my final piece. That way I can find it easily. 3 pieces of paracord, 1 piece that's 16 feet, 1 that is 12, and 1 that is 5. And it's nice to have at least one of those a different color, preferably probably the 12-foot piece. That way it's easy to find when you're hooking everything up. You're not trying to figure out which cord goes to which. So I like to have offset colors. Then you're gonna need 12 bolts. These are roughly 1/4 inch by 3/4 in length. So 1/4 inch diameter, 3/4 length. 3/4 length. Matching 12 washers, matching 12 nuts. You can do lock nuts if you want. I actually just used, I thought I had lock nuts, but I didn't. I just used regular and they've stayed tight. Measuring tape to mark out the holes. You also need 12 eyelets. These are just basically some cheap ones I got off of Amazon. I'll leave a link to those. Then you're going to need a 1/2 inch wrench and also a 1/2 inch driver. Along with that, a drill and a 3/8 bit. And that's everything to do this build. I'm not going to break down the pull tie-in systems. This is a kit that comes from Skipulk. I'll leave a link to that as well, and that's pretty straightforward. We're not going to cover that in this video. So We'll get started. First off, we need to make our holes, and you can modify this however you'd like. If, as far as distances, this is just what worked for me, where I wanted those points of contact for the tie outs to be. So first thing is to get your, I obviously already drilled these, so we're not gonna go through, but it was a 3/8 drill bit, and you just mark accordingly. So I'll show you the measurements and we'll go from there. All right, so first off, I like to start in the back here, and we're gonna make our corner holes here and here. Basically find center off of that corner and come in right at 1.25 inches. So we're gonna make 2 holes, one on this corner, one on this corner, and you can see even that one I'm more at about 1 inch. So my measurements were a little off. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. So you're gonna take your 3/8, pop those holes out. Like I said, I already did it, obviously, but you'll move on from that hole. Your next one is going to be 9 inches forward and right at about, oh, it's about the same, about 1.125 inches into 1.25 inches. So you'll do that matching both sides. 9 inches up to this second hole, and we'll just keep moving our way along. And this will be mirrored on both sides. So we have 9 inches for the first hole, then we move up to, and this is going to center hole to center. That's roughly 14, call it 14.5. That'll match on the other side. And these are still right about that 1.25 inches in from the lip on the inside. The next hole is right about 7 3/4. And I put these a little bit tighter just to keep that spread as my anchor points. Like I said, matching on the other side. Our next set of holes is 12.5. And then the final, if I can get it with a rough idea here, we're right about 11 inches for this last set of holes. These holes come, this is how the sled comes. It comes with these eyelets, and these holes already there, so that's nice. The final hole is going to be right on this lip, and you want to tuck this more into the lip because you don't want your poles binding up as they come across this section. So that I have right at about 1/2 inch in from the lip. And same thing, you're just going to find 45 degrees in from this corner. Okay, so now that we've got our holes measured out, we're going to go ahead and grab an eyelet, some of the bolts, a nut, and a washer. We'll start over here at the rear again. And the biggest thing with these eyelets is just keep them facing in. On these rears, you want them at about a 45 degree, and you want to feed the bolts down rather than up. Put on our washer, feed it through from the back side. Start it finger tight. And that eyelet's going to want to move around on you. So I'm going to grab our 1/2 inch drive and our 3/8. And then just tighten that baby down snug. Kind of adjust with your thumb. Hold tension on that eyelet to keep it about where you want. And I like these coming in at a 45. I don't want too much tension. I just want it to kind of glide with the sled as it goes around the same angle. So now we can just keep putting on eyelets as we go. And on the ones that are sitting on the side, you want them facing our washer on our nut. You want them facing directly across, just straight with the edge. Like so. So everything's feeding straight across to that next hole. It's only the ones on both ends that you want kind of at a 45. So go ahead and do a little fast forward here and get these all installed. All right, now that we've got the eyelets all set, we're ready to do the actual tie down system. And this is where it gets a little tricky. Not really. It's just a series of loops that need to be done correctly in order for this to work. The first set we're going to put in is the tension line. That part doesn't matter, it's easy. We're just going to anchor it on the one edge, just do a simple knot, whatever you want. Run it through all these eyelets and out the other end here, and then we'll hook our carabiner on. It's this side up front where we use the other colored piece of paracord. It gets a little tricky, and I'll zoom in on that. So we'll jump to tying on this piece. So here we go. Okay, we're ready to tie in, starting on the rear here. And I'm just going to do a simple tie out point here. Give myself extra and loop this through on itself as an anchor point. Nothing fancy. Take that tag end and just snug it off. And then we're just going to feed the rest of the rope through on itself. And since I've already used this, I have a series of knots already in this rope. It won't be this difficult when you're first doing it. I just made additional tie outs for the end here. So there we have our loop. We're just going to snug that down. Like I said, the knot doesn't, just something that's going to hold. And now it's pretty simple. We just start feeding the end through each one of these eyelets and try to keep it consistent. I try to go over and then under, if that makes sense, rather than from the back through. I want this on the front side. Okay, now that I've pulled the rest of this through, this is where we put our alternate colored carabiner on the end here. And this is our main anchor point. So as this expands, we'll stretch this out and anchor it depending on the volume of our sled. Now that we got our main tension line in, we're going to move over and take the 12-foot section. The 12-foot section will be the side that actually stays static and is not expandable, and the side that you hook the carabiners to. So we'll get started on that. This one you want to start at the front, and you just want to do any kind of knot you choose on that, just something that's not going to slip. We're going to feed that through on itself. All right, here's the main part of this system that makes this work. Now what we want is we want to have a measured off piece, roughly, I'm going to go just about center line on all of this. And this is the most I want. This piece over here will expand as we use that tension line, we can shrink. But this I want to stay static at this length. It can slide back and forth this way once I put the carabiner on, but I want the anchor point to be here. Okay, get your mark. How far you want it. I want it about center to the sled. Let me get all that. So right about there. And I feed it over the top. Come under. I'll start taking that slack out and then follow itself. You're just following the way you came in, essentially. And just start pulling all that slack out. And as I get this sucked up, it'll make more sense as you see the finished product. Okay, now we're getting to the end, and you can see how it's starting to bind again on itself. I just want to double check and make sure I have the amount that I need. That's where I want it. So now I'm just going to snug it up, take all the tension out, and now we're ready to move on to the second one. We're just going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in, maybe here, over the top, come under and over and start taking up all that slack. Until I have the amount I want. Like I said, I just want to be able to stretch it out to the center of the sled, roughly right there. Take the tail end, feed up and under, and follow yourself back out. Take out the slack. And then as we get close, that's what you want, is that kind of, that pretzel basically. Right like that. Measure again, tighten it up. And there we go, and I'm just going to do that all the way down now. And on the end, we're just going to finish it up with just a simple knot. Leave myself enough room. And tie this off. Like I said, I always leave myself lots of extra here in case I need to adjust anything in the field or I need extra paracord. All right, the last piece is just taking your little 5-foot piece, and this is really whatever you want, and this is just up to preference. Get it undone here. I just use this back piece here as a good storage spot for extra cordage. So I'm just going to tie it off here, and that serves two purposes. It gives me extra cordage in case of an emergency, and back here, once I bring that tension system over, if I don't have much in here, I can latch onto this with that carabiner. And there, we got all our knots done. So now is the part where we hook up our carabiners. We want to just throw them one at every segment. Okay, we're at the point to actually use the tie down system, and I can show you better its features. So you've got your gear in here, whatever storage system you decide to use. Like I said, a Bivy works great. Keeps everything housed and waterproof. So I'm gonna bring you over and show you how that tension system works. So now that we've got everything tucked away, this is where we wanna grab the static side. Remember this side, the dark green side with the carabiners is our static side. We're not gonna move. The loose side is where we just start hooking it. And I'm actually gonna spin this around to make it easier. Okay, all I did was a 180 here so you can see better. So we've got our static side hooked in, and this is where we start pulling on our tension line and getting that tight as we go. Pull it up, come across to our second section. We're gonna hook that and make that tight. You can see it's starting to bind down on itself. It's still loose, but at the end we can go ahead and tighten the whole thing down or do it as we go. Same thing, come to your next section, feed this through, reach across to your carabiner, hook it, take up the slack, and just keep feeding along. And hopefully you're starting to see how this system is adjustable to whatever goods you have in here. So now that I'm down near the end, grab my last one, and things are getting a little tight. I'm almost out of room. Well, that's easy because I just come back here once I have it all set and I really want to anchor it down, get my shovel in here, whatever else I want, and I'm just going to take up that slack. Start pulling and keep everything nice and tidy and tucked in. So see how much we're already gaining just from putting some pressure on there? And that's the beauty of this system is versus ratchets and straps, you're constantly trying to move it, hoping the ratchet works, depending on how much gear you have. And like I said, those just tend to freeze up. But this I can expand all the way out to pretty high, and then I can take up all this slack and really reef down on it. Now here is the main part at the front, and this is why I have that different colored carabiner. So I'm going to take it, keep tension, and start feeding it through the other carabiners while keeping tension. And depending on your load and the size, will tell you how far back you'll actually take this. So in my case, I'm not going to keep feeding just for time's sake. I would keep feeding through these all the way to the back just to keep everything nice in the center. Well, let's just do it for the sake of demonstration. It's not that hard. And sometimes when I have this really loaded out, I'm already back to here and I don't have any more room because I've used up all that volume. Since I don't have much in here right now, we've got all this extra. So this is where you can just bind it either on here with your extra, loop it over and then tension it back on itself and try to find your next closest tie-out point. And that's generally how I try to do it, is reach the next carabiner and then I'm locked and good to go. That's why I have these additional loops as well. That way if I need to add a carabiner, I can tie on any of these. Okay, there we go. Like I said, this is a very efficient, solid system. I've been using it quite a bit. I love it just for its expandability, one, and also having emergency backup with the paracord and just that expansion system, and especially paired with a bivy, keeping everything dry. Even as I'm loading, when this is heavy, I can grab 2 people if I need it, if I have a ton of weight in there, or just myself, and you can really just flip this around, not worry about anything falling out, given I don't have that much in here right now, obviously. But even when I do, I slide this around. I've had it take dives over in the snow and roll, and I don't lose anything. So to me, it's the most efficient and cheap setup. Well, not cheap, inexpensive for somebody to do on their own. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe, leave some comments on your system, or if you see flaws. I'm always trying to learn and grow, just like you guys. So get out there, have fun, have an adventure, and check out one of these videos that I'll throw up here at the end, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.